Greetings, humanity, and welcome to Europa Natural Law, episode 14. And today we're going to be chatting about how we get natural law, the understanding of natural law, out to the world and to the masses, which is what we need to do to solve the problems, the ills of this world. So first, let's just go around and give a quick introduction of everyone. So Derek, do you want to kick off?
Sure, yeah. Great to be back here in my little studio out in France. It's pretty groovy, and yeah, just getting grounded and looking to expound upon what I've done in regards to this topic and what we can further explore and many more. Mon amour.
Hi, I'm Wukan Kempfer from Germany, better known as Alpha Wuk.
Hello, my name is Jasper Roenhuis. I'm from Frisia, and yeah, I'm looking forward to today's topic. So that's it for me.
Hey, I'm Oscar. I'm in Denmark, and yeah, having a jolly Sunday here in outside of Copenhagen, and my home. Good to be with you.
Yeah, great. Thanks for all joining the show. I've sort of scrapped my whole intro that I've been doing for so long, so so I forget to introduce myself. So I'm Nemo Jones, reporting for Beauty, and this topic is just something that I think is a really great thing to talk about. It's kind of like what we all want to do. We all want to be doing what we refer to as the one great work. You know, getting the message out there about morality, the connection between morality and freedom is, one way of thinking about it, and how this is so fundamental, and how important it is to focus on this and to deepen our understanding of this and share our understanding of this. So there's, like, thinking about this topic, I thought there's kind of three approaches that we could take to it. You know, we could potentially all talk about each of these three topics or aspects. So one being the past. Well, what has worked for us? How, what is the content that woke us up? You know, what brought us to this point? The other is the present, what we're doing now, or what other people are doing now that's working, or that we think is valuable. And then the other is the future, what might work, what could we imagine working. So that's kind of a way of breaking it down. So if I just kind of whiz through those quickly from my perspective, like everyone says on this show, Mark Passio was a massive influence on me. He brought together a lot of different ideas. So as I've said before, I was sort of like quite deep into Buddhism, specifically Nichiren Buddhism, for many years. The organization that I was part of sort of went off the rails, really, as far as I could tell, became like corrupt, really, to the ideals, as pretty much every organization does ultimately. But I did learn a lot during that time it was about natural law and about the importance of understanding cause and effect. But that kind of laid a groundwork within me for understanding that in principle, but there wasn't really what you might call loosely a sort of political aspect to the way that was discussed in that milieu. It wasn't really, the political aspect was kind of like kept to the side. And when I say political, obviously I don't mean party political. What I mean is deeply political, as in what is the system that we are kind of under, or that we're partaking in, that we're born into, and what's wrong with it, and why is it essential for us to actually look at it with accurately perceive what it actually is about, and pull it apart and look at you know, really analyze it with a clear view and see what it's actually about and what's actually happening, rather than the narratives that sustain it. So it wasn't really, I'd say that when I encountered Marpassio's work, it kind of, and Larkin Rose, I'd say as well, who's very good at doing the thing I was just talking about, but really looking at, you know, the state, for example, and just making it clear, well, what, you know, what validates the state, the existence of the state, and there's really nothing, you know, there's absolutely no legitimacy to it that you can make a reasonable rational argument for. You can make all kinds of arguments. Oh, it's safe, it's secure, blah blah blah. You can sort of do all this stuff, but at the root of it, you can't make a real legitimate argument for it. And Larkin Rose was very good at kind of very quickly getting to the heart of that issue. So I appreciated his work, and then. So it was, I would say for me, it was encountering those two that people that really kind of made something really clear for me, and it sort of it changed my spiritual kind of life in a way. It made me kind of, it returned me, I guess, to a sense of innocence, of childish idealism. You know, it was like, well, actually, it's okay for me to question everything. It's absolutely legitimate for me to ask, you know, what's going on okay, and to feel the answer, well, no, it's not, and it's fine for me to be this person that's against the status quo. You know, that's actually quite legitimate in itself. So that kind of spurred me on. So I don't want to go on too long, sorry. The present, what I'm doing, well, apart from this show, which, you know, obviously doesn't reach an awful lot of people, it's a kind of first step for me and for us, I guess, to sort of like make an attempt to just get used to doing something online, trying to speak something about truth. And, you know, in the world where, well, we have the internet, that's what we have, that's the tool that we have. You know, I do write, this is another thing that I do, and I'm writing a piece at the moment that I'm releasing in as a series, which is what is natural law. So that's my understanding of natural law, very kind of base level, really. It's not that long. That's something that that's another way that I'm doing. But, you know, some people read, some people don't read. And a lot less people read now because of the internet. And so people are on the internet. You don't see a lot of people sitting around reading books. And so that's really what this question is about as well. How can we use this incredible tool of the internet that's being so misused, you could say, in a lot of different ways, or ill-used, to sort of spread all kinds of nonsense and I guess like titillation, you know, stuff that's just kind of like blah 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 noise sort of thing, you know, entertainment without any real value, moral or intellectual or spiritual value. There's a lot of that going on. So it's really, how can we use it more powerfully than you know, a little show like this that has, I don't know, you know, a few hundred views. It's like, it's not really scratching the surface, you know. So that's the question, is like, well, I've got energy, I'm obviously putting some energy into this, I'm putting some energy into writing, but how can we as together like really focus our energy and do something more to spread the awareness that we want to spread? So that's the question. So looking into the future, you know, we've had conversations before about this topic on the chat, and you know, it seems a little bit, perhaps a bit depressing, but you know, there is TikTok, you know, and there are people watching that, and you know, maybe I should do TikTok videos, you know, and try and reach people in a few seconds with some little nugget. You know, that's the sort of question, is like, if the internet is the tool, then how do you get people to actually engage with an idea through this tool? So that's the question. Right, I think I've rambled long enough. I'll hand it on, so whoever wants to jump in.
Oh, I'll start off with a little caveat, because there are, you know, ancient philosophers and hermeticists and what have you, mystics and occultists, who, I mean, y'all understand the phrase, you know, not to cast pearls before swine or whatever, right? And yeah, that kind of sounds a little elitist or whatever, or pompous or whatever the fuck. Yet at the same time and time again, we see what people actually do with this sacred knowledge, and they just discard it, cast it off, and fucking, like, they might even like it in lip service to it, but, you know, in the end, their actions show a lot less as far as, you know, what they've actually learned about these things or aligned to. And it's unfortunate that, you know, the ways of the world and how the media runs things and flips, and they got the spin doctors and the muckrakers, the whole fucking nine across the board. Anything that can be popular or fucking go viral or whatever the fuck, it can be easily polluted, diluted, prostituted, right? And distorted beyond fucking recognition. And this is not how this pathwork and learning about these things unfold. And we would all love for, you know, this to be spoken about in the public domain, you know, in communities, on TV and all this stuff. Yet it's going to succumb to a lot of the programming and control of the narrative of how they want to portray these concepts or whatever the fuck, and filter out some of that good shit and pump in a bunch of crap. You know, what we mentioned last time, the paltering, you know, like, they got some of that base foundational golden truth, but it's like they excavated some of that shit and just, you know, pumped it full of sludge, you know, like, just think about, you know, religion and, you know, anything, right, that, you know, has its distortions. It's like that for a fucking reason. It's called disinformation, because they do it deliberately, right? So anyways, now, you know, as far as, hey, what's up, Derek Bartolcelli, Awaken Your Mind. If you've been taking the time to recognize and realize, with some of them ears of yours, I've been mixing hip-hop, conscious, you know, infused truth tapestries for the past dozen years, and a lot of the material that I cover touches on a lot of these natural law principles. And that's one medium out of so many across the spectrum. I mean, just think about what's on television and how all the systems of education and what have you. We can all use those and piggyback off of those methods of teaching and portraying certain things, you know, infused with that natty law, you know, natural law, cosmic law, universal law, karmic law. There's so many ways you can flip it, but still mean the same thing, and reach specific audiences that would have that kind of ear to understand that, you know, with that hook, whatever. And then you kind of reel them into other things that are attributed to these natural law principles and the Hermetica. I mean, you could just have a conversation with anyone and something's going to come up. It's going to touch upon something about mentalism or correspondence or vibration or frequency or rhythm, or, you know, especially cause and effect, or, you know, gender. Oh, that's a hot topic these days. Watch out. But so we have to understand, and I'm sure people have experience in, you know, speaking with people, you know, on a face-to-face, you know, in a, you know, public setting or family dynamic, whatever the hell. And you could bring something up out of the blue. They don't know what you're talking about, yet you can throw something relative to what, you know, you got to meet them at their level pretty much, and use examples from that. And you can take that microcosm interaction and have that portrayed for the macrocosmic level, you know, for the masses, right? And it could be as easy as, you know, illustrating coloring books with just a simple phrase. I mean, how many pages is a coloring book these days? 20? Well, you got 20 phrases or words that you can, you know, put thing in, you know, talk about whatever. You can go along the lines of these ancient mystery traditions that are being more popularized, doesn't it seem? And the TikTokification of how media is, you know, just, you know, in this little tic tac pill of, you know, 3 minutes or less, or, you know, it's like 30 seconds or less to get their attention span. You know, like sometimes I want to take that 30 seconds just to explain to people like, hey, it takes like sometimes 30 years to master this shit, master yourself and be fully aligned to the divine and all this shit. It doesn't come in this instant gratification era that people are so conditioned to these days. So in regards to ancient mystery things, what is this? It's pretty heavy. Justice Wagman made this. This is the feather of Mayat. And you see people getting more popular with Hermetic principles even, or, you know, Egyptian symbols. Well, take the time to explain to them like something like Mayat, who represents cosmic law and also is akin to Libra with the scales having things balanced, right? And, you know, if you want to reach the spiritual folks, you got to let them know that, hey, there's a lot of shadow work involved to, you know, really alleviating the weight and the burdens that hold that put pressure on our hearts. And our hearts need to be as light as a feather in order to pass through the gates of Mayat into the halls of Amente, that kind of shit. You know, you're not going to ascend to 5D with a bunch of fucking baggage, you know, things like that. And you can, you know, across the board, we can reach so many different people from, you know, people. I mean, I can pull this up and talk about it next round, but I wrote like a 2-page letter specifically for homeless people, and I printed them out and I wrapped it up and threw $1 in there, and I would hand it out to people when I was driving around. I was living in California and Albuquerque and fucking Oregon for a good like year and a half or so, and I would have those stashed in my car and I would give them to people because there's homelessness is a fucking big issue these days, and like to, you know, giving them the money, that's the motivation, but you got some words behind it. And I spoke about natural law and the Hermetica and how they can, overcome the adversity despite how bad they might think shit is and that kind of stuff. And like use that law of attraction, that cause and effect and all these things. You know, like the lowest common denominator up into like the higher spiritual gurus that are talking out of their motherfucking ass, you know? Think about the whole spectrum and all the different ways and methodologies that we can showcase aspects of these sacred universal principles. I'll pass it off to whoever would like to take it from there.
Yeah, I'll go. I think the another great teacher is like history. When you really get knowledgeable about our own history, you can see the cycles and the patterns, and when you see like the repeating mass death, you could figure out that some behaviors might not be right, and yeah, so I think another reason is the suffering all around us, because I think the level of suffering is extremely high, but most people just suppress it and like then go into addictions and or violent behavior and repeat the cycle of violence, and that's a big issue. They most people don't want to know how the like mechanic or algorithms of the universe really work, of creation. and they don't want to know how they like could use those forces that are at work. They or at least it's my personal experience. Most people are just out for their own small gain at the moment, and I think the whole TikTok topic isn't realistic, because most of the consumers of TikTok aren't capable of like listening for 2 or 3 or 8 hours to a lecture and like taking notes and really want to learn things, and you can't like explain natural law within like 10 minutes.
But they are capable of being enlightened somehow.
For sure.
Yeah.
But I think that like they have to have their brains at least ready to be able to like work with serious information and a lot of it, and to like really understand them and like connect the single pieces. At least in my like personal history, I dove into Hermetica and alchemy, so I got the Hermetic principles pretty early, like a decade before I found Mark's work. And Mark Passio just connected a lot of dots for me and explained like how shall I say it, like the fuel of it with the generative principle, love and fear. That was really, really very helpful. But I think there are a lot of ways and a lot of teachers in like mystery traditions and even in some religions that teach you natural law. And I think even like I'm Christian, Orthodox Christian, I think that in like this religion there's a lot more talk about real morality, not hurting, not doing harm for just pleasure or fun or for their own gain. That is a very like Western concept, at least what my impressions of the like religions here in the West are. But I'm in no way like seeing me as a successful teacher in teaching like a lot of people or reaching a lot of people with a message of natural law. But I hope that some of the like new projects or new attempts will be more fruitful. And I think that the best way to really reach out to people is like Nemo said, using the internet. So we have so many possibilities like doing this show. Even if you're not very knowledgeable, you can invite guests, interview them, or like if you like researching, and so you can do presentations of your own. And I think that's the best way at the moment. You can do audio as well, like through podcasts or through writing or through painting, dancing, whatever. But I think that the main point is that more people have to realize that they have to get involved. It doesn't mean it's not just this topic. When you like believe in politics and you really want change, you have to go into politics en masse to really have a change. I think the German like political spectrum in the last like 20 or 30 years have shown that. Like I remembered the first entrance of the Green Party into the German parliament with white sneakers, and that was a scandal. And yeah, look where we are now. Ha ha ha. But yeah, I think that what could work, what I've figured out for myself, what probably will work best is by humor and music. Just because when you get it, well, like poetry, for example, like when you speak in rhymes, it goes beyond your like skepticism barrier usually, and that's why music is probably the best tool to bring the message to like the masses. But like I think screaming at the audience didn't work that well for reaching like large masses. Being nice or like really trying to be polite and to really try to explain everything, at least in Germany, didn't work that well. At least some people did find that work, and yeah, I think the main part is the people have to like do their own like research or experiments for their on their own for themselves to really get the idea that it's not like a theory, but you can use it in real life. And that made something click in me when I really did my own experiments with it. But the courage to do such experiments is severely lacking, in my humble opinion. So yeah, that's it from me.
Should I go or ask her? You want?
Yeah, go for it, Jasper.
Well, for me, I think when I just realized that like when I was young, like, and I think many would have this experience, is that you like the teacher is like explaining things on like mathematics and stuff, and I was looking outside and looking at the clouds, and for me it was like often, as well as like I there were like some bushes, and I was asking myself um, like if I would be here like a few thousand years ago, like how would things be different than now? So for me, those were like a different route. Because of that question, I got like a different route, because for me that was more interesting than what the teacher was saying. And like, if you follow and put your attention there, you'll achieve like much better. And you get to just on this trajectory of like reaching to some career. Like the teacher asks like, what do you want to become like in the future? um, but for me, that was an archaeologist. I have an interest in archaeology. And I think also that people are already kind of know what natural law is intuitively. Like if you get to know someone and ask like, oh, how, just day-to-day things, how many children do you have any children, and do you have family, and this and that, then eventually, like, if you know each other well, you'll ask like, it's at least from my perspective, is that people ask what the nature of reality is. That's when people are like, okay, now that we've talked about the small things, like the what your family thinks of that, now we've established a base. Okay, let's go deeper into asking what is the nature of reality. And asking that, I think you'll end up with natural law, but people would use different words to describe natural law. And so Derek and Foucault, you mentioned hermeticism. Like that's one type of stream that can align, like shine certain lights on natural law. But I think natural law is also evolving over time, and it's like what many people practiced since alchemy, and which like just like Rupert Sheldrake is still doing, is how is natural law changing over time. That's something that I find interesting, is that like, okay, we could agree that natural law exists, but defining these natural laws, yes, there's the 7 Hermetic principles, and Mark Pacioli added another one. But I think that natural laws, there are actually a lot more that aren't mentioned in those. So in the last episode, I mentioned Gurdjieff. He also shined light on natural law and how there's multiple cosmoses, not just the micro and the macro, but there's like 7 layers of different cosmoses. So I think natural law is actually quite much broader than is still mentioned. And I also think that it's also grounded within common sense. So if you like would study with Gurdjieff, your senses are already attuned to it, but you don't have the vocabulary to describe it. And that's what I think what the importance is of this is to be able to better describe what is natural law, how does it impact me, why should I know about it, and how does this change my life than when I wouldn't have known of this natural law. So that's basically what my perspective is on it. Mark Piasso was one of the teachers that I came across, but it was not for me the major one. So I don't necessarily stick to his philosophy or his approach, because I don't think necessarily that the combative attitude is always the best attitude to have as well when it comes to natural law. Yes, it's at certain times, yes, that's appropriate, but I also see it more from how he puts himself up. Like I really respect him, and he also says in the beginning, like, don't look at me like I'm not important. But natural law, tradition of people that spoke about natural law goes along further back, and to speak on that like personally, so I don't speak that for other people, but from the tradition that I am from, it's already inherent within my tradition, was already taught. And like a lot of indigenous languages, cultures, and have this basis already in their culture, so they don't need to be taught natural law. So I think those people you don't need to go there and teach them natural law, because they're already living it. They're in tune with nature, like the Kero in Peru, for example, or the Sami in Scandinavia. These people already live quite close to nature, and they might not know about hermetic laws per se, but they still attune themselves to what natural law is. So that's my take on it. Thank you.
Yeah, do you want to speak, Oscar?
No, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that, you know, Hermetic, the Hermetic principles, I don't think, well, the way I see it is that natural law is something that needs to be spoken about now. You know, it's like, maybe there's a better word for it. Someone's typing, they're not muted, by the way.
That was me.
But yeah, yeah. For me, it's like it's a moment. This is a moment. It's like it's important that we start to have a shared global understanding of what we're talking about, and that's why, as far as I can see, it's natural law. That's the term. That, you know, maybe another term will come along that will supersede that. You know, that's possible, but right now, as I see it, natural law is the term which brings all these ideas together. You know, from even, you know, the logos to the Tao. You know, completely disparate ideas which all point to this one kind of fundamental moral reality. And that's what's kind of missing, is this shared language. And so we've got this kind of global control impulse happening, and what we haven't got is a shared response, a shared kind of spiritual language, way of responding to that. And that's why, as I see it at the moment, natural law is the word. It's just the simplest, the easiest way of describing it, of what we're talking, kind of agreeing on it. And the Hermetic principles is something that's, it's interesting. It's quite relatively new to me. It's not something, obviously, cause and effect is in there, and really it's cause and effect that we're really talking about. That's the fundamental thing that we're talking about. It's like just really thinking about what cause and effect means. The other Hermetic principles are, they're valuable, but I don't see them as really essential. And there is this kind of like urgency about the whole thing, which means, and that's really why I'm talking about, should we be on TikTok or whatever it is, and this thing of like wanting to, because it is inherent. This is inherent within everyone. Everyone can understand this, but it's somehow people are, as we see, people are so people are caught up in ideologies and this kind of thing, and they're very passionate about these ideologies that they're caught up in, and a lot of times they're really quite misguided and really shallow. And I think there's a way of, doing, there must be some magic that can be worked here, to bypass and to set people onto a path where, maybe the TikTok generation isn't going to sit down and study and watch endless, presentations and read the Kabbalion or whatever, or, it's all this stuff, but it's not, doesn't have to be that complicated either. It's kind of because there is an inherent thing that anyone can understand to do with cause and effect, and to do with, the really simple stuff about the state, and just the pure, what's legitimate, what is, what a right is, what a right isn't, this kind of stuff is so simple that, I don't know, that's what I'm trying to sort of get to, is like communicating that, ways of communicating that in a simple way and as widely as possible. So I don't know, that's a little bit. Oscar, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I mean, just quickly, the one thing I would say about the natural laws pertaining to the Kabbalion, I would have to agree with you there, Jasper, that of course natural law is more broad than those 7 principles that are outlined in Hermeticism. And maybe also a bit disagree with you, Nemo, about how that they're just valuable. The other ones, I think they're very much relevant to when we speak about how reality is created, whether or not we create a condition of freedom or of slavery. But I do see also why it's nice to simplify, or like it's valuable to simplify things and say, okay, primarily maybe we're speaking about something that pertains to that principle of cause and effect. And it is valuable to simplify things. There is, of course, such a thing as oversimplification, but having something simple and then building upon that is something that we should definitely be aware of. And I was thinking of that movie, I think it's from 2010, maybe, by Christopher Nolan, called Inception. And in that movie, they have this, they're planning on how to plant a seed in someone's, another individual's mind, and it's important that the person themselves arrive at the conclusion that the people who are kind of like trying to mind control him, or trying to they're trying to plant the seed into it, and the way they go about it is through different layers. So there's like, the deeper they go in this maybe like subconscious, or in the individual's mind, the simpler the idea has to be. And I'm just seeing that I need to charge my computer. Just give me a second. Boom. Yeah, I was just thinking of that, and how that is kind of speaking to how from a very simple understanding you build upon that, and that is also how our minds work, how we conceive of things. Is we start by learning the basics, we start by learning the ABCs, and then we can start saying sentences with the words we've learned, and eventually also writing, essays and speaking, and that's also what we're speaking about here, is how do we go about teaching and using our rhetoric to how does one go about using one's voice to speak to the whole world, and that is a possibility. People have done it, and I myself would have to disclose that I'm not really there yet. I think I'm eager to share what I've learned, but I am still I would say in a learning stage. And of course there's such a thing, a beautiful thing, which is learning through teaching, or learning hand in hand with teaching. But I think one thing I'm trying to do is not rush that rhetoric stage, because maybe Derek, can you bring up my slides? I'll share this meme here, just make it bigger, because I have to agree with you, Jasper, that it does seem as though we have like within us already the seed of common sense, or already the seed of knowledge that is relevant to learning about our own minds and the world. But it's as if kind of like it's beaten out of us. It's as if that, or not as if, that's actually something I would claim, is that the conditioning, it begins from so much early on, that, as I was saying before, like when you're just receptive and in this very subconscious state of mind, which you are the first years of your life, the first I think 4 or 5 years of one's life are called the formative years. And I think that one is in a state of consciousness that is very receptive, and all those influences that are given, and it's just like it's disguised as love, or as sweetness, or as care and warmth, and it's just poison. Is, well, a lot of it is. And I'm thinking of how it does take quite a lot of strength to say no to that, to be able to defend oneself from that. And I want to bring up this painting by a Danish guy called Storm Petersen, or just Storm P, and it's called Back to Nature, this painting. And I thought it was a good slide to bring up, just to speak a bit about the topic of today, which is teaching natural law, and how does one reach the masses. And for me, I think my experience has been that I decided to not conform maybe as a teenager, but I think there was some parts in my childhood where I remember, and I can see that I was willing to make an ass out of myself, or I was willing to not obey, or not to go with the flow, if you will. And or like with that flow that you can see in that image, a lot of individuals are going in line, and they're just following orders. I'm kind of just interpreting the painting, right? I don't know what the original idea with it was, but I'm using it to kind of speak to that thing, that I feel like I was that individual who decided, hey, I'm gonna go my own way, and I think that is a big part of how I came to a deeper understanding of natural law than I did early on in my life. And that's what makes me think, why would it be any different for everybody else? Why would it be any different than having to make the choice of going one's own way, or going a different way, owning one's own uniqueness? And I'll just zoom in on this painting, because you see there is this individual that is observing this guy going his own way. So when we see people making asses of themselves, or like really making asses of themselves in the sense that they're not, partaking in the ways of the normal ways, they they stand out to some individuals. Notice that and are curious and are trying to understand why that is. And I think that is very true. When people choose to go their own way, they lead by example. Some people will be curious. They will question, what is that even a thing? Can that be done? Kind of as Nemo was saying earlier on, that you felt that you were confirmed in that you could actually it was okay to have an opposition to the state. And yeah, so I'd like to maybe go back to the three questions that you were talking about, Nemo. What has helped us to learn more about natural law? I don't know if I'm remembering correctly. What have we tried out that we feel has worked, and what do we imagine what might work? Am I remembering correctly?
Sorry. Yes. Yeah. It's just past, present, and future. Is a simple way. Like, you know, what's
I'll try to answer those three things. I feel I kind of alluded a bit to it, so I feel that I can take credit for a lot of my own awakening process. But of course, without the work that was put out there on the internet or through books or through music or through art, I wouldn't have gotten as far as I have gotten. And that's not to say I'm really far, but I cannot take credit for the help that I was given, but I can take credit for seeking that help and receiving that help and taking it in as far as I have been able to do. And also what I'm doing now is not really a lot. I mean, I'm trying to, well, it's not a lot in the regards of trying to teach others, because I think that I've been finding it difficult to not, like, I don't want to talk to people as though they're children, you know. I don't want to talk to them as though they're idiots, or try to sound more clever than I am. I don't want to I want to be able to meet them where they are. But the thing is that there's also different stages of consciousness. When I was a teenager, I was somewhere different than I am now. It's 10 years ago since I was 16, and my way of thinking back then was very different. I was not the guy who has the same thoughts as I do now. I was more of a kid who was, I was, and it's what I'm thinking in regards to that is how would someone be able to plant a seed in me back then? And I think it is a lot about planting seeds when we're speaking about what can be done. I think a lot of what we can do is not interfere with people's own development, and that does not mean we should just. Yeah, can you bring back my slide? I have a slide for that actually. I really think is good, because I think we shouldn't be these guys here that are like, oh, now I know. People are just on their own. They just have to figure it out. Oh, they're enslaving themselves. I know how to not enslave oneself, or how not to create slavery. And what I mean by that is we can definitely interfere in the sense that we have something to say. Like we have an influence in what goes on in the world, but we should be aware of how people are responsible for their own learning, and so we shouldn't be just thinking everything is fine. You know, we're not gonna try to, how can you say, like, have an effect on the world. We should definitely use our voices, and there's so many ways to do that. I really like the idea you brought up, Derek, about the coloring book. I thought that was a really cool way to go about it. I want to do something like that. That sounds really cool. And leading by example, right? When it comes to that thing of not casting pearls before swine, which was brought up, which is something also spoken of in the Kybalion, the book on Hermetic philosophy. I do think that the truth in it is simply that people, just like the Gustave Le Bon quote, the truth is that the masses have never thirsted after truth. They just turn aside from evidence that is not to their taste. They prefer to deify error. They want to deify error if error seduces them. So whoever can supply them with illusions is easily their master. You can become the master of people if you can supply them with illusions, but you will become their victim if you attempt to destroy their illusions. And yeah, I mean, to go back to this painting here, which I really like, is it's also tempting to look at all those people who are wearing gray clothes and are just following line and call them one thing, that they are the crowd, they are the masses. But if I had to make a point in regards to how to reach the masses, it's not to try to reach the masses, to realize that the masses are made up of individuals, and to try to reach individuals that are what the masses are composed of, because the group doesn't really exist, only individuals exist. And we're kind of taught to look at other people as, what's hip, what the crowd, like the normal, the society, but society just means people being social together, individuals, that's what's real. It's not to say, oh, there's no such thing as the thing of people being community together or creating civilization. That's not what my point. My point is to say it's that builds upon the individuals. That's something the individuals create together, and we shouldn't try to change society. We should realize that we are society in the way that we are. Every time I go to a party, I'm socializing and I'm showing other people how that's done. And if I'm being respectful, and if I'm aware of that the objective morality should be obeyed, that's the example I'm teaching. Every time I'm in what's it called, company of the youth, I'm showing them how to be an adult. I'm showing them how to grow up, whether I like it or not. I think it's a difficult task, but I love that I have that power, and I also love that I don't have more power than that. Because, hey, if everyone was like me, if I was the only influence that the youth has, they would be fucked up. Like I'm not the best influence out there, But I am one, and I'm so honored to be one of these influences and I hope that I can be that guy there that and the youth can be that individual. Well, hopefully, I hope the youth doesn't get in that situation, but where they're in the line, just, yeah. I'm ranting a bit here. I'll try to wrap it
good,
up,
brother.
I think what you were speaking about, Vuk, of using humor and art and music is true, but I don't think I'm funny enough to do it. I do think that I want to use my musicality, and I love when people are encouraged to use their creativity, and I mean, of course, I think I can try to be funny, like, because humor is a good way to approach reality, to not only see it as a tragedy, even though it does have its horror, or it's really shit, like slapping you in the face things. But one other thing I would add to things that might work is that whole thing of not sending your kids to public school, or like unschooling, trying to unlearn the things that we've been taught, and of course, it's not just going back to nature, living in the cave, it's definitely, as you were saying, Nemo, learning the technology, learning to use the technology. That's not to mean we should just only use that because it exists. We are also, you know, just we can also just have a conversation with someone, or we can. There's many different ways of doing it, but yeah, I think it is very interesting, that whole internet world, and the whole thing of echo chambers, and how do we reach people when, you know, they have every one of us has kind of like the power to isolate ourselves from information that we don't like, just like that Gustave Le Bon quote in the book The Crowd, that we can be seduced by error and deify it. You know, we can. If I want to convince myself that something which is wrong is true, I can find information on it on the internet and confirm my bias on that. So yeah, we should I think we should try to just keep challenging ourselves. That's what I would say, and that will inspire people, and because people will in the end be responsible for their own learning. And natural law is not something that we have, that we're out there, we want to give people. Natural law is here. It's here for everyone to discover, and it's up for people to go and find it and find out. And of course, every effort that is made to help people find it is valuable, is worthy. So the more the better. The more the people who engage in it, the better. But we shouldn't just you know, like oh yeah, we should be mindful of our approach to it. And I think a good approach is to recognize people will be able to find out for themselves with the right help, but not, you know, just we should be able to confront people and help them, but we shouldn't, like, people are responsible for their own learning, and I think it's good to strike that balance. And yeah, I have a strong opinion, as you can see, a lot of things I've been saying here. So I'll wrap it up. Thanks.
Cheers. Yeah. Hey, it's not like the old days where we would get stoned to death just for sharing one opinion, right? You know, so like we need to cultivate more courage just to, you know, put ourselves out there. And yeah, like we are challenging ourselves to, you know, speak to others about certain things that they might be defiant of, or gonna give you flack for, or try to ridicule you or whatever. You know, like if you came to that gnosis of self and have that proper knowledge and have done your fucking homework, research, and all that jazz, and you've had it confirmed over and over and over again, what the fuck is there to fucking fear? Oh, someone else's opinion. Oh, wow. Oh, that hurts so bad. You know, like what the fuck? Like, understand logical fallacies, the ad hominem attacks. That shit don't fucking bother you if you fucking shield yourself and wield your magic properly, right? Because you do know yourself, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be trying to put yourself as the mage on the stage in regards to conveying certain things. And yeah, Oscar made me think about a lot of shit, man. Especially just in, like, you're in a social setting, right? And you don't even have to say much about natural law or anything. You just conduct yourself as a stellar human being, and sometimes that will attract curiosity and make people come up to you and be like, yo, you look so good, or, you know, you're talking about some really interesting stuff, or you seem really mature, whatever. Like, what have you been doing? What are you eating? You know, like all these things, right? And then you can, you know, lay it on them, if you will, right? And you know, yeah, different strokes for different folks. There's so many different approaches on these things, and yeah, it is quite a task to take, revolving, you know, like showing your vulnerability in front of the conformists and kind of basking in their fake ass humility that might, you know, throw upon you, whatever. You know what I mean? Can you handle it? Like, if you know yourself and love yourself, it shouldn't be that big of an issue. Yeah, honestly, it does. It can feel heartbreaking knowing that, people are that ignorant, and, realizing that people would say such things in the face of, these enlightening concepts that you're trying to portray to people and all this stuff, right? But hey, it's better than, just going with the flow, or you keeping silent during these draconian times, I feel. And yeah, during these draconian times, there's a whirlwind of conspiracy theories going on that we kind of get caught up in, into the labeling of. And I've been a victim of, my own family call me conspiracy theorist, all this shit and all this. And what I've been able to do in regards to flipping the script and making them more understanding of, what I learned and all this stuff, is just going back to philosophy, spirituality, natural law. And this is what I tell them, like, and I show them, like, hey, I've learned these things on the side, yet they will also prove some of these conspiracy theories that, there is some shit going on. Yet learning all that good helped me improve, leaps and bounds from what I was before. And so you go into, how it's helped you on a multidimensional level, being the mental plane, the emotional plane, and the physical body, and how you act out those, the things that you learn, and what you're aligned to, and what you're magnetized towards, the law of attraction, right? And what you are consuming and doing can rupture or improve your magnetic field as well. Look into the works of Manly P. Hall. He's great. And yeah, we're at an hour. I know we got to wrap this up. I'm going to make it real quick. I won't get into that little piece that I wrote for folks that are down on hard times, might be homeless, displaced, whatever. I'd like to give a shout out to Theo Lukes and other folks that have been up in the Europa Natural Law chat on Telegram. Because, yeah, every week, we throw out these topics, and Nemo asks the question, and folks are free to respond however they want to, respond, right? And I like how Theo responded towards this topic that we're talking about right now of, how can you as the individual be a spark in the eyes of others that can, get keyed into these sacred natural law principles and all this stuff. And the last part of what Theo wrote was, and this is something I was going to say, I had it written down, so I'm just going to, give him the mic because he's not here. I would say branching. So answering the question of, how can we effectively teach natural law? He would say, branching out at whatever you're good at and passionate about, like, what are you talented in? Use those talents, use those skills to, what you've cultivated to, have that, art of the craft in your way of expressing consciousness. Back to what he said, it can be anything really, right? And it can go along with entrepreneurship as well. Yeah, we can make money off of it and not feel bad. It's not like people need to chill the fuck out on, how the energy exchange is, unfortunately, with the financial, enslavement attached to it. Yet, whatever, c'est la vie. You can exchange services for services as well. But we just need to do something that gets you up and excited, and sprinkle in some of that natural law along the way, right? As he said. And I think he says people are naturally attracted to active and passionate people. So get creative with that. And there's a lot of different ways. And if you want to really improve your rhetoric, as far as, how you can say, portray, convey whatever you want, but obviously the topic is that natty law, learn more about these things. Read some of the literature that's out there. Thomas Aquinas, even some of the works of some of the forefathers that wrote the Constitution, to a little bit. And yes, you have to use high discernment with these things. Just like with fucking anything, it's not just this one thing that you need discernment. It's fucking everything, even yourself. You know, like come on. So, sorry. I lost my train of thought. I'll say goodbye at the very end. So I'll pass it off, my friend. Sorry.
Yeah, I think leading by example is probably the best way to really get the message across to other people. But I think it is quite a slippery slope to let people choose their own path. Like in the example with the boat, where the boat is sinking, we all have to get involved to help the situation, or we are going all for the swim. So just keeping their mouth shut or staying passive won't help. You help our opposition. You help enslavement by that. You help oppression by that. So it would be very wise at first to really like start with yourself and do the work on yourself first. Like Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world, and then start helping other people to understand what they're doing wrong. And I think that's not a like interference into their free will. Quite the contrary, it's like offering help, because I think we all knew natural law like when we were kids, because you see so many kids like playing with animals, for example, like they are brothers, and we lose that by our conditioning through society. We have to remember this like truth to get in line with reality and truth again. And that's why it's so important to really get involved and speak up. And yeah, if you don't have the knowledge about tech, Mark is offering another course on how to become the true media, and I really can recommend it, especially for people that yeah, don't have the tech skills and want to get started. It's just definitely a good like Mark is especially good in lighting fire under your ass, so it's really recommended.
I have to go now. Someone is ringing the bell. Thanks for the conversation, everyone. Have a good night.
Peace, brother. Thank you, man.
So yeah, that's for me.
Cheers. Jasper, did you want to put in a last word?
Yeah, it's only like for like I come here from Friesel, so I live quite close to the ocean. So for me, learning about natural law is quite essential. Not because it's like a hobby or that how Mark Passio introduced it to me, but before that it was already a concern. Like in the tradition here, it's already a concern, natural law, because of closest to the ocean and we're lower to the ocean, so we have to kind of battle against the ocean at fight. So doesn't matter like how powerful a person thinks he is, like the ocean, it will always be way more powerful. So for me, I address that issue, and I think that's also why it's important to be aware of natural laws. It's seeing like how can we as humans collaborate instead of create drama amongst ourselves, work together towards a common cause. And so for me is also a concern, how much can natural law be influenced, like if we know about it, like how does this change our mindset towards nature, and can we also steer nature towards a different direction where we're don't have these catastrophes. Sorry, I cannot say the word right. But that's what I wonder about. It's like the not necessarily like the whole social aspect, but for me, it's more like the like can we steer like life towards a different direction? because eventually, like this, the ocean will levels will rise and it will overtake this area, and that's what my ancestors built for. They built this where I live. It used to be ocean, so we took this land from the ocean. So for us, how we engage with nature, that's what we do day to day already. But I'm not like wanting to convince anybody of anything, but this is my perspective, and this is how I see it from tradition. And that's also why I'm here and why I find this to be important. But I'll listen back on the show to hear better. Sometimes I get distracted and stuff, so if I picked up on some of the things, but I do have to get used to podcasting again. It's been a while, so that's it for me. That's all I can say. So thank you guys for your time, and yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, brother.
Yes, I'll just come in with a couple of last thoughts. To me, there's something about simplicity. Yes, there are these aspects like the Hermetic principles or whatever. There's an infinite wealth of knowledge, that's built up over millennia that people can kind of dig into and get different aspects into this subject. But we're at a point where, as I think I can't remember who was saying, it's like people, I think Oscar was saying, people have no appetite for truth. And so that's really the point that we have to sort of focus on, is putting the question in people's minds, and giving them this ability, this kind of moment, hopefully a little moment of going, oh, what if I did care? What if it does matter, or whatever shift in consciousness is needed? And the reason is because, unfortunately, people who just want to be left alone, like myself, I can't be left. I'm not going to be left alone. Why am I not going to be left alone? Well, it's because I'm in a totally deluded world. So therefore, the delusions of the mass of people is in my face. I can't actually avoid it. And if I try to avoid it by acting morally and just acting within my rights, as I see them, that's not going to work in the world as it is, basically. So I don't really have any choice. And so, there are very, very simple facts, that people don't know and that people don't consider. And, for example, Mark passed a kind of brilliant, like, simple insight, which is, as morality increases, freedom increases. As morality declines, freedom declines. People don't know that, and they don't think in those terms, and I think this is, as far as I can see, I don't have a choice. I have to act. I have to do this. I have to try and get people to understand that, if nothing else, because that opens up a question then, of like, well, what does that mean? What is moral? What is immoral in this world? Oh yeah, that, you can start to look around you and notice, oh yeah, this world is built on immorality, and immorality in a way is slavery. It is the lack of freedom. And so I don't have a choice. I need to act. And, the reason I wanted to kind of talk about the subject was because I feel like I'm doing something, but I want to act. I want to be smart. I don't want to put energy in. I don't want to waste energy. that I have. You know, I have energy, I have some insight. You know, I want to be smart about where I'm putting that and what I'm doing and how I'm reaching people, and how I'm planting seeds. You know, someone else said, you know, because yeah, if you want to be left alone, you can't lead by. That's not an example, in a way. You know, it's not really a time for that, for going and being on your own, as much as you want that, and that's ultimately all that I want. It's just not that's not the time. It's not going to work. So unfortunately, if I want my grandchildren to be left alone, then I have to see the reality of this moment, of this world, and say, okay, unfortunately, I can't just go and be on my own. I actually have to go out and act in a way which is quite counterintuitive. I don't want to go on the internet and do. I don't want to have to write stuff that's kind of obvious in a way, you know, to me, or that stuff that I've learned. The stuff that's, it's like I'm kind of like, it's not enough for me to just kind of be enlightened to the extent that I am. I have to now go and tell everyone about it. It's like, that's embarrassing. You know, it's like, do it yourself, you know. But you know, and obviously most people that read my stuff, they probably do get most of it anyway. So this is the kind of point. It's like, well, how do you reach onto those beyond the people that already get it? How do you reach out into the world of TikTok or whatever it is? You know, so I'm left with this question. I'm still like, well, I need to, I've got to do more, you know, like way more than what I'm doing. And it's tricky. It's really tricky. Anyway, Derek, did you want to, you sort of ran out of steam last time around. Did you want to?
Yeah, sure. Real quick. Thank you very much. I mean, it's just two things, right? You see how some of these story writers that throw in a bunch of allegory, they're master builders of, you know, creating, you know, this, you know, landscape and all these things. And bottom line, hats off to them. We can continue that. We don't have to continue paying attention to bullshit, broke ass Hollywood, broke ass, woke ass, whatever the fuck. Because true magicians know how to whisper the truth through art. So again, it goes back to what your creative capacities are at the moment and what you want, what you're passionate about also, and build from there. Just keep it going, build up that momentum towards what you want to, you know, have as leave as a legacy of, you know, who you are and what you've learned and what you've shared with others. I guess, you know, go through that hero's journey, right, as we spoke about in previous episodes, and learn how to untangle some of that Gordian knot and try to teach others as well, kind of stuff. So yeah, all of us are still at the learning stage. We have to keep humbling ourselves. And yes, we can, you know, be at the level of, we have a couple of decades of, you know, experience of, you know, researching whatever, a couple of years, whatever. We can, you know, start from that platform and just build ourselves up as we go, and, you know, speak upon what we know already and not get ahead of ourselves, not get caught up in the, oh, I got to go viral type of stuff and throw out your fucking bullshit, you know, clickbait bullshit. You know, we're walking on sacred grounds here, and I'm not one to water the shit the fuck down. And I just want to encourage people to keep a high standard in regards to this path work and sharing it with others. So yeah, and peace to all y'all that are even considering doing that, those who are doing it, and yeah, all that good shit. So thank you for listening and all that.
Thanks, everyone. So yeah, thanks for being on the show. Everyone's links will be in the show notes and should be on the Europa Natural Law tap link as well, I think, hopefully. You can join us on the Telegram group where we have discussions all the time. well, maybe not quite all the time, but we have discussions. And there's been quite a lot of discussion I haven't been able to keep up with on the chat this week, which is nice to see on the YouTube. And what else? That's about it, I think. So thanks very much, everyone. I'm Nemo Jones, reporting for Beauty, and I will see you next week on Europa Natural Law.